Hello and welcome to Chris & Co, the show looking at what affects business in Kent, with me, Chris Price. Joining me this week is Cllr Mark Dance, Kent County Council's Cabinet Member for Economic Development. Later we'll be looking at what factors are behind an apparent slowdown in Kent companies hiring staff and investing in equipment. First though, we're looking at big changes to business rates and whether they're creating a postcode lottery when it comes to taxes on firms. Our reporter Louisa Britton outlines what the reforms will mean.
New business rates will be coming into force in April. This is a tax that all UK firms pay on the property they use, like these shops and cafes in Rochester's High Street. But the tax is predicted to rise and has been described as the largest change to business rates in a generation. But how exactly are business rates calculated? So every 5 years, the value of properties is assessed to determine their rateable value, which broadly represents the yearly rent. The rateable value is then combined with the multiplier, a figure set by the government each year, to determine the final amount due. So how will businesses be affected by the new rates? According to CVS, a business rates specialist, shops in almost 800 villages, towns and cities in England and Wales will see their rateable values rise from the 1st of April. Experts have also said small businesses and shops in the high street will be hit particularly hard by the rise in business tax, but it will depend on where the shops are. For example, according to the government's predictions, for a small shop on Rochester's High Street, the tax will go up by almost £500 a year, but for the same size shop in Margate's High Street, the tax would actually fall by almost £100. So with many firms set to be affected, it remains to be seen whether this will indeed shake up the way businesses operate in the UK and to what extent. Louisa Britton, KMTV.
What was behind bringing in these business rate reforms?
Well, I think what we've seen in recent years is a trend in government funding that is reducing the amount of money we directly get from government. And what the government are interested in doing is to actually base our income on business rates. For a start, you've got to look at...
The council's income, you mean?
The council's income.
The local council's income, yeah.
We get something called a supplementary grant from government, which is getting smaller and smaller each year. And the government's thinking is, well, can they directly coordinate that with business rates? So it's a very complex system. It needs an overhaul, and we're watching like a hawk because it'll be our income to actually cover the cost of the services we have to provide by statute: elderly care, education. So it's in everyone's interest that this formula works.
Sure. So do you think that the government's intention when they set out these reforms was to, as Louisa Britton highlighted in her report there, that in some areas like Rochester, the amount of business rates some firms will pay will rise, but in other areas like Margate, in that example, the actual amount they pay will fall? I mean, was the intention to create a kind of postcode lottery, for want of a better term, if you will?
As far as I'm concerned, no matter where the business is, the business has got to survive on its own business case. So to actually lotterise or have rates within an area is a really difficult one, because we see businesses that have business plans and there is either a gap for affordability or there isn't. And my concern is the effect on the very big businesses, because when they wrote to the county council and said, we're consulting, what do you think? Immediately we saw the percentage hike in large business rates. Well, I'd say that's high risk, because the large businesses hold the majority of the jobs, hundreds of jobs.
Yeah.
If their margins are tight, it may be a Brexit effect, it might be the world market, it might be the minimum wage. I'd say that's high risk. So when we wrote back to government, we said we wanted a smoother escalator for larger businesses to be in tune with what they're suggesting for the smaller business.
Sure. I mean, what undoubtedly these reforms are there to help small businesses. I mean, So small business rate relief will be permanently doubled from 50% to 100% from April. And at the same time, the government will increase the number of firms able to claim small business rate relief because they're going to double the threshold from £6,000 of the rateable value to £12,000 having to pay nothing at all. So obviously it's there to help small business. So is your concern then that large business is actually getting left behind a bit by this?
I think large business is high risk because what we're looking at in the Brexit conversation is, where do we put our business? Do we remain in this country, or is Europe a better place to be? So I think there's some very careful thinking that has to go around how we treat large businesses, because we saw with Pfizer, it wasn't the reason. Pfizer decided to do things completely differently.
You're talking about Pfizer leaving Kent,
Yeah.
or scaling down in 2013, was it?
One big business and all those jobs, we recovered the situation. It's taken us 10 years. So we don't want that happening again because of business rates and a very hard escalator for large businesses. Small businesses, incrementally, their payments will go up. Well, large business can go up by 42%. That is huge. And if you are a high street brand in London, one of the bigger names, then you can look for a hike of 42%. So where's the viability? You've got minimum wage coming below that as well as a higher cost, quite rightly in my view. But you've got to add all this up. Can those businesses survive in the high street?
Sure. These cuts for small businesses in particular, I appreciate what you're saying, there's going to be rises for large businesses, but they're coming at a time when, say, social care budgets are down, and there are a lot of other pressures for local authorities on the way they're going to spend their money. Can we afford to be giving small businesses these kinds of business rate cuts, do you think? Do you think that it's the right way for the government to go about it?
I think every small business deserves a start. And if it doesn't differentiate, as it certainly doesn't, with a new business and an established business, you've got to be fair. However, if someone has a successful small business and doesn't want to grow that business and is happy with it, it's also got to be fair to them as well. So I think Kent as a whole, with so many small businesses making up the economy, this is crucial to get this right. And we feel as though we've helped and supported those small businesses in our consultation back to government. But my main concern still is the big high street names and the bigger businesses.
Do you think that, given these reforms that are going to come in April, that's it, they're coming in, do you think that perhaps actually another side effect is perhaps never been a better time to set up a business, because you're going to, if you're going into a smaller property that's, has this higher level of relief, that actually, your startup costs might be quite low? Do you think maybe that's the kind of impetus to get people going?
It's only one part of the equation. As we know, and you're very familiar with our Regional Growth Fund, a company comes to us with a business plan, and this is all part of it. Minimum wage levels, business rates, bank borrowing, product. It's, I think, how many people you employ will have an effect, because if your overheads are going up and up and your margins are tight, it will be employment that suffers, and that will be a very difficult thing for us, because we want to promote employment. We want Kent to be a fertile ground, so companies will want to come to Kent and grow and create jobs. So we're watching it like a hawk.
So overall, do you think that you welcome these impending reforms to business rates, or do you think maybe you have more concerns about them from a local, from Kent County Council's point of view?
My concern is we need an amount of money to serve all those people and all those relatives who live in Kent, whether they're older people, whether they're children at school, and somewhere down the line we're going to have to be relying on business rates. So it's got to be done right, it's got to be fair. Also, what we're looking for is we have got to have a baseline to say, well, as a county council, we can't operate under a certain level, irrespective of the business rates, because something will go somewhere, and it's not for government to stand back and let us flounder. It's to say, there's your baseline, that's what you need to operate. You help and promote those businesses within Kent, and you'll have extra monies to do extra things because we've got a growing older population. That's sort of fair, but don't let us just rely on business rates. Something happens in the world where businesses are finding it tough or legislation changes, and we're literally left holding the baby.
Okay. All right, Mark, thanks very much for your thoughts on that. Moving on now. A recent study of more than 180 businesses in Kent found that bosses are slowing down plans to invest in staff and buy new equipment. The quarterly economic survey carried out by Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce showed the number of firms set to increase spending on equipment has fallen sharply to its lowest level since the 2008 financial crisis. Meanwhile, those planning to cut investment in equipment has only ever been higher once in the last 3 years. The outlook for investment in staff is also showing signs of slowing, as Adam Devaney explains.
The latest economic survey by Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce indicates that businesses are planning to invest less in staff and equipment over the next 3 months. Only 1 in 4 firms plans to increase spending, which is down from 27% in the preceding quarter. And where more firms usually increase investment in equipment than less, this quarter saw a break in tradition when there was a balance between firms planning to increase and firms planning to decrease their spending. However, some specialist companies show no sign of slowing down. Greengate Access Systems is a company that specialises in providing and installing advanced security systems, including solar-powered barriers and gates. Managing Director Neil Sampson plans to double his workforce, as well as invest heavily in staff training and gym facilities. He attributes their niche to be the driving force for the company's growth.
We're quite fortunate to be in a slightly unique marketplace, the security market and the health and safety market, both of which seem to be quite resilient to downturns, and I experienced this when I launched the company 10 years ago, just before a massive recession, yet we grew 25% year on year through that period of time. So the security market is slightly unusual.
However, despite intentions to increase investment, finding the right people to fill these specialist positions is difficult, a problem that the Chamber of Commerce's survey has identified to be a prevailing trend across the majority of Kent businesses.
Yeah, we struggle enormously to find well-qualified staff in our particular niche, and we're not alone. That's not just us. It's not just us in Kent. I'm chairman of a trade association with 500 members in the gate and barrier market, and all of us struggle exactly the same way. And that is why we take the route to really invest in our staff. Now, sometimes it is simpler and easier and more realistic to find the right type of people and train them internally for our particular skill set.
With the backdrop of financial uncertainty, businesses operating in niche markets can be more confident to invest in more people, but have very few options. Adam Devaney reporting for KMTV.
So, Mark, from that package there, we heard that there are some concerns from businesses about investing in staff, investing in equipment. From your conversations with businesses in Kent, how do you think they're feeling at the moment?
I think we are in an interesting situation because of our proximity to London and our proximity to Europe. And one of the areas I've been looking quite deeply into is our tourism, hospitality and travel industry. Now that supports 72,000 jobs. Now the benefit of the moment is the devaluing of the pound to the euro. We're getting more tourism. We had 60 million visitors last year and £3.6 billion was spent in the county. Now for that sector, there's not an issue, but it's other sectors like engineering where they're buying their raw materials from abroad and they're having to pay, because the pound has devalued, more money for that. But then their exports are good. because they're buying in euros against the pound. So we're in a balancing act at the moment, and what will Brexit bring? Yeah. We wait and see.
Is Brexit the overarching factor in concerns in this sort of perhaps a wavering of confidence, or are there other factors in play at the moment, do you think?
I think as we move to the digital and communications world, and where you've got a really good website and you've got some good search engine optimization, so you're right at the top of the Google list, really it's more international now around the world, because someone from Europe's not going to say, well, I'm looking at that and 3 people in America aren't. Everyone's looking at every product, providing you're getting yourself up the Google Analytics list. So we're really in a world market. So my thoughts are Brexit is sort of diminishing as an effect, providing we step up to the game internationally.
In Adam Devaney's report there, we saw that there was some concerns from business owners about being able to access the right kind of staff when they are looking to hire. I mean, the Chamber survey showed that around 8 in 10 firms say that they struggle to find the right people when they are trying to hire, and that's a stat that's remained relatively level for quite a while. What do you think can be done to try and address that issue?
It's a perfect question at this moment in time, because we're just moving forward into the apprenticeship levy. And this is a perfect time for us to get behind something that's good. Not everyone has to make a choice and go directly to university. They can gain a job and take that university degree and get paid at the same time. Eminently sensible to me, no debt at the end of it. But what it means is schools have got to open up and allow businesses and chambers of commerce to come in and talk to them and talk about the jobs available to young people, how they access them, and how you meet businesses' need.
So you think apprenticeships are the saviour here for businesses looking to get the right kind of skilled people?
If we get the training right, where industry says, well done, that young person you took from an educational establishment understands my business, and when they walk through the front door, they weren't owed a living, they added to my business. They had that attitude. They were smart, the work rate was there, they were polite. That's what businesses need, people willing to accept the surroundings and get on and enhance and help grow that company. It's attitudes.
So, I mean, the levy obviously is going to mean that large companies pay 0.5% of their pay bill if their turnover is 3 million, or pay bill, sorry, is 3 million. It's all very well having money though for the problem, but is the system up to scratch to actually provide these people once all this new money from the levy comes in? Are systems in place to generate still the quality skilled young people that are needed?
It is now. We just sorted it out.
No, just simply by getting the
No, we've involved ourselves because our turnover is over 3 million. So therefore, we have to provide an environment for apprentices to join Kent County Council. But we can't ignore business. So we've asked Middleton Murray to actually come in and talk to businesses around Kent that aren't connected to schools or further education and say, here is the apprenticeship levy, this is what we can do for you. So we're working with industry to make sure this is a success.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for your input there. That's it for the latest edition of Chris & Co, our show looking at the issues affecting business in Kent. You can keep up to date with all the county's latest business news at kentbusiness.co.uk, and you can also follow us on Twitter at KentBusiness and join our pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks to Mark Dance, Councillor from Kent County Council, for coming in. Have a good day.